Hey guys, so what we're going to do today is, I'm going to show y'all how to remove springs from the front of what we're doing it on is a 2015 Mustang, but this you could probably use on any vehicle. This is if you don't have a spring compressor. It's kind of sketchy, but it does work. It helps if you have at least two sets of hands. The first step, loosen up the strut nut right there. What that does is it's going to help to release it from the strut mounting bracket. Don't completely remove it, just loosen it, and then when you go to actually remove it, you'll want to have an impact drill, something that can spin fast, because if you try to do this by hand, you're just going to spin the strut itself, or the rod inside the strut. So what I start with is just go ahead and get that loose. The next step is there are two little fasteners, little retaining clips that you'll want to remove from the strut itself. If you have a trim panel removal tool, that does help in this case, but I forgot mine. So you'll want to undo that one, and then there's going to be one down here. Now the next step, you're going to go ahead and remove, there are two bolts that hold the brake caliper on. It's going to be the inside bolt, not this one, but the ones on the inside. And then there's one down below right here. I don't know if y'all will be able to see this one, but right down there. So you'll go ahead and remove those. For example, on the Mustang, it takes a 15mm socket. Once you take the caliper bolts off, and just pull the caliper off. Set it off to the side. Make sure it's secure up there so it doesn't fall and you mess up your brake line. Then you'll remove the rotor. The next step is going to be remove the stabilizer link from the strut. And to do that, you need a 17mm crescent wrench and a socket, a 3/4 inch socket. So you'll take the crescent wrench, there's a nut on the back, hold that, and just break the nut loose. Once you do that, if you have an impact wrench, you can go back with that.
Makes things a little bit easier.
And then that just pulls right out. Just move that off to the side. Now for the next part, you'll want to remove these two nuts. They are a 24mm, that's the size. With these, it's going to help to have leverage because they're torqued to 184 pound-feet. What y'all want to do is take your ratcheting wrench, and I use just a pipe for leverage. Once you break the nuts loose, you can twist them off by hand. But this is just going to help so you don't have to use so much energy. Okay. The next step, once you undo these nuts, make it to where it's flush with the bolt. The reason for that is we're about to have to hammer these bolts out because they're splined, and when you do that you don't want to damage the threads. So just take, use a sledgehammer, and I use the side so I can get more force with it. Now, as you can see, you have to hit it very hard, so don't be scared. And then once it pops out, you'll be able to remove that bolt. Do the same thing for the bottom bolt. Okay, once you remove the nuts for the spline bolts, go ahead and take your jack and a block of wood and support the suspension that's connected to the strut, because we're going to go ahead and remove the nut that's holding the strut to the strut mounting bracket up at the top. And this is where having a drill is going to come, or a torque wrench is going to come into play. Otherwise, this rod right here will start spinning if you do it by hand. So go ahead, undo that nut. And what we're going to do now is slowly lower the suspension. Okay. What I found easiest from this point is I'm going to remove the bottom bolt, spline bolt first, and then the top spline bolt. So what I found is actually just using a ratcheting wrench to walk them out, because there's a load on the suspension, and I want to I don't want to mess up the threads on the bolts. So doing it this way, in my opinion, is a little bit, for one, it's a little bit easier, and two, it's a little bit better on the bolts. Once you get those bolts out, that's where the second set of hands comes in. So after you release the mounting point to the suspension from the strut, if you have a second set of hands, they're going to be able to catch it. In my case, I was doing it by myself, and it just kind of fell. No damage to the strut. But once you do that, you're able to remove the spring, and this piece is going to come with it as well. So the next thing to do, go ahead and put your spring on the strut. Make sure that at the bottom it lines up with this, or it touches this rubber piece right here. And then on this top piece, you can see where the old spring was. So I just try to line that up with that as best as possible. Then it's time to reinstall your strut. Now when reinstalling the strut, this is where that second set of hands is going to come in handy. So you'll want to go ahead and just get it close to the mounting bracket. Have your second set of hands hold it. Hold it from the bottom with one hand. And then just watch that finger. If you have 3 sets of hands, that'll be even better, but most people might not have access to that. Then what you'll take the suspension part and try to mount it with the strut. Once you get it, and this is where if you had another set of hands, you could hold this and have the other person put in the bolt. So once you get one bolt in, it's a lot easier to work with because you're not fighting everything. The next part is just going to be maneuvering the suspension to get the lower bolt in. Once you do that, make sure the spring is still seated properly in both mounting points. What you'll do is take the jack and just like when you lowered it, get it in the same spot. And you'll want to, while jacking it up, make sure that it's going in the mounting bracket at the top. Once it goes all the way through, you can go ahead and just hand tighten the nut up top. One thing I want to say is that when jacking the strut up through here, you do have to kind of maneuver it to get it into position. Once you do that, just get the nut on there hand tight, and then you can go ahead and relieve stress on the jack, or lower the jack. Once you let the strut down, take your drill or impact wrench and tighten it. Now again, if you try to tighten it by hand, that whole rod is just going to spin. So an impact drill or impact wrench is going to do the best thing. Next step, I'm going to go ahead and reattach the clips that we removed, just so that we don't forget about them. Okay. And then I'm just going to go ahead and lightly tap the bolts. And the reason I do that is I've had it happen where the nut doesn't bite, or it's not getting not enough of the splines are in the housing, so it's just spinning the whole bolt. But once you get the splines in there, what's going to happen is when you go to tighten your nuts, it's going to actually pull that bolt through there. And again, this is where a pipe or some type of device for leverage will come into play. So I just go ahead and tighten it as easy as I can by hand. I'm not going to put a lot of energy into it because there's no need. Just get it to the point where it's starting to have some resistance. Take your leverage tool and just get them nice and tight. Now you'll want to go ahead and, after getting these just tight, you don't torque them down yet, go ahead and get your stabilizer link, put it through the right area, take your nut, spin it on there, get your crescent wrench, or box end wrench, I'm sorry, get a hold of the nut over here, just get it nice and tight. What we're going to do now, after tightening down these two bolts right here and this one for the stabilizer link, is we're going to go ahead and torque these down before installing the caliper and rotor. On this specific model, or this specific car, these are torqued to 184 pound-feet of torque, and these are torqued to 85 pound-feet of torque. What you want to do now is go ahead and install your rotor. If you have someone that can hold this for you, it's going to make things a lot easier. Then you'll take your caliper, make sure you don't get the brake line twisted, and just work it onto the rotor. Sometimes they are a pain in the butt. Once you get those tightened down, go back and torque the 2 bolts to 85 pound-feet of torque. And then once you get all that, make sure that everything is placed back properly and you're ready to reinstall your wheel. I hope this video helps. Y'all take care. Have a great day.